Perfect. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing today? Well, thank you. I'm Golan Levin. Thank you for the privilege of speaking to you this morning. I want to thank Daniel for organizing this, and thanks to all of you for your time and early rising and interest in attending. As you may know, I'm actually the director of the laboratory you're in, the Frank-Ratchye Studio for Creative Inquiry. So it's also my terrific pleasure to incidentally welcome you to our house and to thank our terrific staff, especially Tom Hughes and Linda Hager, for facilitating this and dedicated assistance in organizing this event in service of Daniel's vision here. So many of you are my students and colleagues who've already heard me speak so many times before that for this reason, I'm actually going to give a very different talk today. I'm actually on my sabbatical, so this is also something I'm kind of, I'm in a different state of mind. And so I'll be giving a very different talk today than I usually would, especially because I have tons of work online, and you've probably all seen it before or can find it easily if you need to. So I'll be showing some stuff I've never shown. And additionally, although this talk is nominally part of a session about intelligence, I wanted to respect that, but if anything, I'll be speaking about an abject lack of intelligence, and except perhaps in the way that we might understand intelligent design as we sort of understand it popularly. So I want to thank you for this privilege and for this understanding. I'm going to talk today about interpolation and transformation. Who cannot but wonder at the natural marvel, the mysterious metamorphosis of a caterpillar, which architects a chrysalis in which it turns privately and away from our eyes into a butterfly. That's me in the pupa there on my current sabbatical, transforming somehow. Transformation is not just natural, but supernatural. Jesus' first miracle is one of transmutation. In John 2, we learn that Jesus delivers a sign of his glory at the wedding at Cana, specifically by turning water into wine. Further details are not given. I'll show some of my own work. Here we are. Observation and myth are compelling, but to me, direct experience is even more so. And undergoing apparent transformations to one's own body is particularly enthralling. My project Augmented Hand series, created with Kyle McDonald and Christine Segru, presents dreamlike transformations of the visitor's hands. In the words of one 7-year-old, it's a box, you put your hand in it, you see your hand with an extra finger. It actually does a lot more than that. It has many other scenes. And this is probably the one project that I'll show today that actually has some kind of intelligence as we understand it, which is to say basically fancy statistics and machine learning that do gradient descent in order to fit a hand model to something coming in from a leap controller. But critically, and this is really important, the project's transformations operate within the logical space of the hand itself, which is to say that the artwork performs hand-aware visualizations that understand or appear to understand something about and alter the deep structure of how the hand appears. To see our hands thus transformed is to experience our most familiar extensions made unfamiliar, refracted in giddy and disturbing new, weird, and peculiar ways of being. Seeing those things understood or appear to be understood by a machine and subverted by a machine is an uncanny experience. But the thing is, it's not enough to know that a transformation has occurred, even to yourself. We yearn to see how this metamorphosis takes place, step by step, to understand its details. We need to see some intermediate stages, to see inside the butterfly's pupa for epistemic proof, as in this political cartoon of 1831 by Charles Philippon, which illustrates, in this case, the progressive degradation of the effectiveness of the king's rule. He turns into a pear. And whether producing still image sequences or animations, the computer is the ideal tool for visualizing these in-between states of form. How else could one produce the covers of Animorphs, a popular series of books, appropriately enough, written for tweens, who are themselves grappling with wild and frustrating changes to their bodies? Here, a boy who turns into a horse, a girl who turns into a starfish, or perhaps the reverse, puberty. You're all architects, and transformations of this form on the computer are known by many names. Architects, you call it lofting, a lofty title. In visual arts, especially with pixel-based images, it's called morphing. the first technology for which was developed by Nancy Burson when she was an artist in residence at MIT in the early 1980s. Her software was face-aware, understanding hand-coded landmarks for things like eyes and noses. And in vector-based images or in geometry, we have interpolation or tweening, such as illustrated by Jason Salavon's work here. This is a time-lapse of a very slowly evolving kind of digital painting, which transforms very slowly between different admixtures of human, bear, baboon, and boar skulls. But in my next section, I thought I'd like to dig into the very deep history of this sort of interpolation idea. Some of the earliest computed transformations study the relationship of form to randomness and consider the progressive dissolution of a single form. Here is chaos to order, a basic assignment in any introductive computational arts curriculum, a plotter drawing made in 1967, in this case, by Chuck Suri and James Schaffer. A hummingbird gradually decomposes through the admission of more noise and is shown in progressive states. In Lady Quark by Manfred Moore of 1972, a series of 9 squares use interpolation to forge a path from order to noise. Each square is progressively transformed over the course of 23 iterations into a randomized crinkly polygon. Other works in the period consider the relationship of 2 forms without the influence of randomness. In the 1968 Return to Square by Masao Komura and Kunio Yamanaka, members of Japan's Computer Technique Group, or CTG, the ideal form of a square is metamorphosed into the profile of a woman and then returned to a square again. Several versions of the work exist, including versions with exponential and linear interpolation. In 1967, Chuck Suri and James Schaffer again created aging process, or transformation it's also called, a drawing rendered on a drum plotter by an IBM 7009-4. It is an attempt to see an evolution that happens to all of us and everyone we know, but it fails to work as one might naively expect because it is not face-aware. It shows a person changing from young to old, but the project is full of glitches because the marks are not well parameterized. The computer truly comes into its own when we ask it to show the intermediate states in otherwise impossible or unknowable transitions between forms that we know well. This lovely work is Fruit Salad by Jus Cranen and Adrian Hain from 1970. At the 4 corners are a platonic apple, lemon, orange, and chestnut, which I guess, for argument's sake, is a fruit. But inside the square are the uncanny mixtures. Although bananas and ice cream cones are both foodstuffs, it is not clear how one could meaningfully parameterize their transition. William Kolomajek nevertheless tried, and states that his attempt from the early 1970s performs linear interpolation of 99 points, allowing the treat to be consumed again and again. The height of absurd and puzzling transitions is Masao Komura's Running Cola is Africa, a well-known computer artwork that appeared in the 1968 Cybernetic Serendipity exhibition. As pattern-making observers, I know it is possible to find a meaning or story here. The artist is still alive. I have asked him why he selected these things and have not heard back. In my own work, I strain towards the absolute, and I seek to eschew the arbitrary. A touchstone for me is Vasily Kandinsky's Manifesto of Modernist Form, point and line to plane. He defines the triangle and the circle as the primary contrasting pair of planar forms, the maximally and minimally pointy, if you will. There is something so pleasing about such absolute forms. They are eternal talismans that own the purity of mathematics. In a distressing world full of oppressive capitalist patriarchy and bewildering complexity of organic systems, we should consider ourselves profoundly privileged to have the luxury of thinking about triangles and circles. As an artist, I don't even have to pretend that I intend to make a built structure. So let's own that and jump in and see how confounding and human even such simple forms can be. As these are logical extrema, it will surprise no one that there is a history of creating a transition or gradation between them. The hand-drawn examples shown here are from Wu Shisuang's introductory text, Principles of Two-Dimensional Design, 1972. I actually particularly admire the cleverness of his bottom row. It's the silhouette of a cone rotating from plan to section view. As you can imagine, there are an infinity of ways of getting from a circle to a triangle. And in the section that follows, I'd like to share with you some of my own attempts. I allowed myself 1 week to devise every possible transformation from a circle to a triangle that I could think of, which I implemented in P5.js. John Cage said, if something is boring after 2 minutes, try it for 4. If it's still boring, try 8, then 16, then 32. Eventually one discovers that it is not boring after all. So we have maybe 10 minutes left. I hope this will be enough. I'm going to switch to a browser view, so forgive me while I figure this out. Here we go. Chrome. And let's pull up. Ah, it worked. Okay. Here, let me reload. Okay, a circle that gradually loses all points but 3. This is the as boring as possible part of the lecture. Let's try another one. A circle whose, let's think of it this way, a triangle whose points develop larger and larger radii of curvature. Here we go. No reaction, all right. 3 circular arcs whose radii gradually go to infinity. Tough crowd. All right. 6 circular arcs which alternate, they're interdigitated. 3 of them develop a radius of curvature of 0. 3 of them develop a radius of curvature equal to the intended circle, or at infinity. 3 Bezier curves. And we control the strength of the coordinates that pull the corners. Oh, this one. Okay, this one's a bitch. A circle is subsampled with many points around, and then all of the points are moved inwards towards the center of the circle until they reach a triangle. They're just linearly interpolating inwards. Each point is averaged with its neighbors, which causes the whole thing to contract, except for 3 points. We're getting to some really ugly territory here. Essentially, a circle is cropped in from the side. There are a few rules to this, by the way. Each of these is a computed perimeter. There's no trickery with like a white circle pasted onto a black circle or anything like that. It's just a single, set of points that defines this outline here. And it's all 2D. I would like to do that cone one, but I have to think about how to do that trick in a 2-dimensional way. It's not so simple. This is the ugliest of the family. The circle shrinks, revealing a triangle. The circle shrinks, revealing a triangle, but the points that comprise the circle move randomly inwards until they are a triangle. There. Okay. So, a whole bunch of points are connected by springs. And they start out as a circle. And then they want to become a triangle, because that's actually their true rest lengths are as this triangle. So then they kind of snap in, but there's a lot of kind of loosey-goosey shit going on. This one was a total bug, and it just happened, and I was like, what is that? It took me a while to even figure out how to put words to it. I guess each side of the triangle starts out as an arc that gets larger and larger, or smaller and smaller. Right, a circle is just a triangle with lots of extra points. So we gradually delete those points until all that remains is the triangle. I'm reminded of that thing when sculpting an elephant from a block of marble. Just remove all the parts of the marble that don't look like the elephant. So start with 3, double it, get 6, double it, get 12, double it, get 24, and then stop when you feel like it. So I have all this extra time, so I'll show you the exact same things with squares now. Actually, no. Oh. There's boring, and then there's really boring. That's my last one for today of the circle to triangle sequence. I'm going to head back now to my slide presentation. But this is just sort of, I don't intend to make a pavilion out of these. It's just triangles and circles. But let's head back over, because I'm going to conclude my talk. Let's see, where am I? I was over here with Cage. I'm going to conclude my talk with a very tiny presentation about the piece which is over in the Miller Gallery exhibition called Meshi, which I conceived in, it turns out, January of 1998, so almost 20 years ago. And it was conceived as a kind of an interaction that was concerned specifically with interpolation. And when Daniel invited me to be in the show, he clearly had this kind of like black and white thing going on, and I rarely get to think in black and white in the School of Art. So it's nice to have, again, this kind of simple choice. And Meshi is a project of mine when I was still learning how to code. It was one of the first projects I developed. And it began in this set of notebook sketches with wondering what would happen when one line would interpolate into another. So a user makes a mark, a user makes a second mark, and the intelligence in this case is all in the user. Everything else is just geometry. Points along the resampled mark move from one mark to the next. And you see that happening here. These are my original sketches from '98. The interesting things start to happen when a user makes different kinds of marks. But rather than show the sketches, I thought I'd show the actual project, which is running, amazingly, in processing. So if I run this, if I say present, I may have to switch to the, which is fine, it's okay. I'm just going to switch to the single view. Beg your patience for a second. Mirror. Groovy. All right. Oh, I have to hit present. Sketch, present. Hey, all right. So it begins very simply. The user makes one mark, and the user makes another, and a mesh is drawn between them. I should have brought my mouse. If the marks are close together, you get this kind of tube as these little diamonds travel from one mark to the next. The direction one makes the mark in matters. If I make one mark that goes down and another mark that goes up, then there's a kind of a twist. If I make a kind of a shape like that, then I can get sort of interesting patterns. And if I make, let's say, a circle and a dot in the middle, then I get things like this. There's, all sort of world of sort of shapes that can result. And then when the shapes are complex, then the user enters a kind of exploratory experience with this kind of volume. It's all actually 2D, but it looks volumetric, because tricks. That is it. I find interpolation to be this kind of wonderful starting point for a series of investigations that don't have too much intelligence to them. And often intelligence, not much is needed. The intelligence here is I'll say it's all mine in the sense of, it's just the geometry and what I've learned from Pythagoras, and all yours in terms of what the user brings to it and how they wish to experience and understand the system. A typical person coming to it does not know that what the system does is interpolate from one line to another, but they figure that out gradually over time. I want to say thank you so much.